Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, there's been a lot of consequential Supreme Court decisions lately, some that you guys probably heard about already, some that you may have not heard about. One in particular that really got no interest from mainstream media, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But I wanted to go through them. Surprisingly, the majority of the decisions have been good, but there have been a couple of really horrific decisions, specifically affecting labor rights and personal safety. So, you may have heard already that at the beginning of June, the court ruled that Alabama violated the Voting Rights Act by gerrymandering voting maps. Essentially, they corralled the majority of the Black voters into a single district to limit their voting power. That was a surprising decision because two conservative justices sided with the liberal court. Chief Justice Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh voted along with the liberals and said, no, you have to do those maps over. Then, in a similar ruling in the past week, the Supreme Court refused to take up a case in which Louisiana was ordered to redraw their gerrymandered congressional districts. The lower court said you need to add another majority Black district. And then it was taken to the Supreme Court and they said, yeah, no, we're going to let that lower court ruling stand. Bye-bye. That you got to do what they say. Then came the big kahuna last week. The Supreme Court rejected Republicans' twisted idea that each state's lawmakers should be able to determine election laws and that federal election rules can't be imposed, basically. It's called the independent state legislature theory. And, no doubt, if that was the law of the land in 2020, Trump would be president right now. They would have used that disaster of a legal theory to usurp the will of the voters in numerous states. So in this case, the liberal justices were joined by Kavanaugh and Roberts again, as well as Amy Coney Barrett. So they all slapped down this nonsense. So those were all great decisions. Then there was another win for the people. Norfolk Southern, the company whose greed basically led to that disastrous train wreck in Ohio, they tried to argue that corporations shouldn't be forced to answer to lawsuits brought in states where they don't have a headquarters. I mean, you can see how this would allow corporations to literally get away with murder, right? I mean, if someone tried to sue a company, someone's loved one died on the company dime and on the company time, and the family tried to sue, but in the US, they have no headquarters, that makes them above the law. So in this case, the Supreme Court did the right thing. Again, they ruled that yes, if a company does business in a particular state, they can be sued in that jurisdiction. Here's where the Supreme Court took a wrong turn. On Tuesday of last week, they reversed a man's conviction for making threats against a country music performer. They ruled that a person has to know that their statements are threats in order to be held liable. 7 out of 9 justices ruled that in order to protect free speech, a prosecutor has to prove that the defendant, quote, disregarded a substantial risk that his communications would be viewed as threatening violence. So you will likely never hear me say this again, but I actually agree with Justice Clarence Thomas and Amy Coney Barrett. Unbelievable. These two dissented, and Barrett pointed out that this ruling makes it harder for the authorities to deal with threats, and she's right. In her dissent, she said, quote, a delusional speaker may lack awareness of the threatening nature of her speech. A devious speaker may strategically disclaim such awareness, and a lucky speaker may leave behind no evidence of mental state for the government to use against her. Especially in this environment that we're in, this just seems wildly irresponsible. And speaking of irresponsibility, as you guys all likely know, the Supreme Court also overturned another long-standing law, this time about affirmative action. So colleges and universities are now free to discriminate whenever, wherever they wish. And for those who point to California and they say, oh, look, even liberals in California voted to end affirmative action in their state. Unless you live in California, as I do, you might not know, you might not be aware that there was very deceptive language used in that ballot measure. The question was written in a way that made it sound as if schools could discriminate if you voted against the measure. So I'm sure that many well-meaning Californians who believe in equality, who are against discrimination, voted for the measure thinking that they were protecting the rights of people of color. If you don't go through the voting book, like I do as a nerd, and read all the ballot measures in full and the pros and cons and exactly what it means, people probably voted for it by accident. So, when you hear people citing recent polling that, oh, Biden and the Democrats must be really unpopular because the majority of Americans say we're on the wrong track. Yeah, this is why. Or at least it's part of the reason why. This, abortion, so many other things, we are going backwards. We are not on the right track. And it's not because of Biden and the Democrats. I have my issues with them. Believe me, I have a lot of issues with the Democrats. But it's because our country has been hijacked by radical right-wing regressive extremists who want to take us back to the Stone Ages. They want to take us back to a time when they can just drag a woman off to a cave, right? And segregation is allowed to take hold again. So speaking of being taken back to the Stone Age, you guys have all also probably heard about the SCOTUS ruling about the religious website designer, how she was, not going to be forced to create wedding websites for anyone in the LGBTQ plus community. So just as with the baker that was ruled on in the past, she and others can now legally discriminate. They can legally exclude human beings, just like Jesus said to do in the Bible. Anyway, the Supreme Court also said that a man couldn't be forced to work on Sunday due to his religion. So, nice to see that the court is upholding the rights of people to believe in something that may or may not exist, right? Yet women aren't afforded the freedom to live their lives as they wish. But, who am I kidding? I mean, women's lives don't matter, right? We don't matter to the religious right. We know that. And then finally, I wanted to share a ruling, like I said at the beginning, that got almost no media coverage. Here's why. I think mainstream media avoided this because even liberal justices ruled in favor of corporate greed over workers. This decision was made about a month or so ago, and it basically destroys workers' rights and the power of unions. The justices ruled in favor of Glacier Northwest. This is a company that apparently they do concrete work, and they sued their workers for going on strike. The company claimed they suffered economic harm as a result of the strike because there was concrete in the barrels, and they came in for work and then they left, and the concrete hardened and it cost them a bunch of money. In an 8-1 decision, the court ruled in their favor, in the company's favor. So the Supreme Court allowed this company to bypass the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, because they would normally take up a case like this first. It wouldn't normally go straight to court. The NLRB would have to rule on it and say, yes, you're allowed to sue them, or no, they were within their rights. So this decision could have far-reaching consequences, very chilling effects on unions and on, this newfound power by employees against greedy corporations. It's just unbelievable that they did that. So anyway, guys, I will let you know if and when I hear any more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you guys. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.